It is definitely that time of year. Late midsummer, the pressure is beginning to mount, but there is one curveball that will catch you if you don't pay attention because it can seem very simple and very straightforward, but the reality is it's tricky. And there are some clues of how you pass this test. This is Committed, the college admissions playbook. John, how you doing, man? How's your summer going? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Summer's going well. I missed you on the last episode, so I know you had a thing come up last minute, so I did the best I could.
Dude, you killed it.
I couldn't quarterback it nearly as well as you. So I hope I made you proud.
Hey, the podcast must go on. The podcast must go on. The millions upon millions of our listeners have to make sure they have their daily or weekly dose of Committed. So, man, thanks for keeping the train on the tracks, brother.
Listen, man, I cannot disappoint our 6 followers. So
No, that's right.
step up.
Right.
I had to step up.
Our fans expect to hear from us. Our fans expect to hear from us. And today, what I want us to chat a little bit with our listeners about is this thing called the personal statement, or just the college essay. There's a lot, from my experience, there's a lot of misunderstanding around this, and sometimes people oversimplify it and really miss a chance to shine in the application process. What have you seen as some common challenges or common mistakes people have made with their Common App essay?
You're spot on. So, when you really think about the purpose of the essay, so when these application items start going out, this is really your one chance to give the schools an opportunity to see who you are from a value standpoint, from a personality standpoint, and everything else is data. So when students are not taking advantage of being able to share their story, their true authentic story, where they're talking about this amazing experience or something they truly value, or whatever the case may be. But we were talking offline before we started recording. It's really easy to write a bad essay, and it's really hard to write a good essay. Anybody can put an essay together, but the problem and the issue comes to play when, is it going to be captivating enough for an admissions counselor to want to continue reading it, knowing they have 60,000 other essays that's waiting for them?
Yeah. I think I love what you said. Sometimes people forget that your values, your character, and just qualities and characteristics about you are and can be a part of the admissions selection process. If you look at Common Data Set and you look under C7, it tells you, each school tells you what's most important, what's not important. And I often get the question, well, how are they determining? They say values, they say character. That's coming from your essay primarily. And this is the chance for you to highlight those different types of things. And I also love what you said is that anyone can write an essay, but there's a difference between a great college essay and an essay. This isn't your, even your AP English or AP US history class essay on, the American Revolution. This isn't your book report on To Kill a Mockingbird. This is a different type of essay. And it's not the standard 5-paragraph intro, point 1, point 2, point 3 conclusion. There are some different things about this essay that it's so important for people to consider. And obviously, like you said at the end, your audience. Who's your audience? Your audience are those admissions officers, and you have to take in mind what you want them to know about you. So as we get started here, what are some no-nos? Like for me, I think there's just way too many cliche topics that students want to write about that in no way give them a chance of standing out, because a million people are writing about mission trips or writing about student council or sports or things of that nature. And not that those things are bad, but they're writing about topics that just give them no chance of really standing out. What are some other things that you see, people really making challenges or creating challenge, and just there are no-nos around the college essay?
My biggest pet peeve, and I don't know where this came from. I don't know at what point people think that the personal statement is where you can share your pity party. So many students come in and they think, okay, you know what? So I have to write about my biggest challenge and what I've overcome and what I've learned from it. And when I share with them, because, anybody can go online and they can see, okay, if you're going to use the Common App, here are the 7 prompts that you can choose from.
Yeah.
And, number 2, share a challenge or something you've overcome. How did you overcome it? What did you learn from the experience? They don't want a pity party, so it is evaluating and differentiating what is a true challenge that you've overcome. How impactful was it to your life versus, reaching for something that in the grand scheme of things, it looks forced.
Mhm.
So I have to tell these kids so many times, you know what, like that is not the go-to essay that they're looking for. If
Yeah.
something troubling happened to you, great, that's fine. You can utilize it, but don't search for it.
Yeah. I agree. I think, so many times we want to make it about the trial or the test. And what an admissions officer is looking for is, I want to know about the transformation that came from that trial or that
Right.
test. Right. It's great that are able to describe this challenge you went through, but they're more important. How did it shape you? How did it change you? What did you learn on the other side of that? They're wanting to know about the transformation because that gives them insight into the student they're deciding to admit or not. The other one that, I think that it can really be overdone, and it's not to minimize the impact, and it's not to minimize the importance of any of these topics. They can just be overdone. And, the last thing I'd want to do is minimize the impact of COVID. But I think that's another one that students need to shy away from. What are your thoughts around writing, particularly about COVID?
I agree. I mean, the whole point is to differentiate yourself. And when the entire globe dealt with a very similar issue, you can share different
Yeah.
things about yourself. So the personal statement is where they're prompting you, okay, here's these certain things you can talk about. And then there is an additional information tab where there is a separate space for if there's anything related to COVID that you would like to share. And usually when I'm coaching my kids, I'm telling them, you're not utilizing this space unless there is something very specific that other kids did not have to deal with via COVID.
That's right. That's
And
right.
an
I agree
exa
100%.
and an example is, my go-to example is, okay, you know what? So, your freshman year, your grades were not great, but it was because we were still virtually learning,
Mm.
and God forbid, mom or dad lost their job and you had unstable internet connection.
Yeah.
So that is that asterisk that needs to be mentioned somewhere, but not that, oh, it was difficult or I had trouble connecting with my teachers, because those are issues that everybody dealt with.
Everybody had, yeah. The only, I agree. I think, you have to, if you're going to write about it, number one, love the call out there. There's a space on the Common App to write about this. It doesn't have to be wrapped up into your personal statements. The second thing I love that you shared is, how is your experience with COVID different? I had a student that wrote about COVID. Her dad is a surgeon, and literally for 60 to 90 days, he lived away from his family, can go home. He was at the hospital and he was at this apartment that the hospital rented out for him. So, and here's the tie-in she made to it. She wants to be a surgeon. And so not only was that a trial that she went to for 60 to 90 days being away from her dad, but she understands even more so the sacrifices that healthcare professionals have to make when they're deciding that profession. So it really made a lot of sense, but it has to be unique. So here's what's happening right now. We got people listening that are like marking through all the, I guess I can't write about this. I guess I can't write about this. What's the process you take your students through, to help them come in with just a good topic? Because it's not simple. It's not, I tell my students all the time, listen, your essay is not going to be in your first 3 or 4 drafts. This is a process. What's the process look like for you and your students?
The process for us, now granted, there's, plenty of ways to skin a cat and everybody's going to have their own approach to it. It's another thing we were talking about offline, allowing yourself to be vulnerable and
Yeah.
really taking the time. And this isn't something personally that, you just tell the kid, hey, go think about what you want to write about. We spend a lot of time having conversations and I'm probing and we're looking for just different elements about them that eventually becomes a trend.
Yeah. That's right.
Whether you're talking, with somebody who's in your corner like we are, or you're talking to your parents, or go have lunch with your best friend and you guys just want to talk through, okay, what are the things about me that is most important that these schools need to know about?
Yeah.
So whether it's an accomplishment, whether it's revelation, moment of clarity, whatever it is, but really take the time to dig within and figure out what is the story that I want them to know about me.
I think I love what you said. What do you want the admissions officer to know about you? That is that is, in my opinion, the best place to start. Like Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. At the end of your essay, what do you want an admissions officer to walk away knowing about you that they probably wouldn't have got anywhere else in your application? Right. Another type of essay that I just really hate is the narrative at resume. They kind of they
Mhm.
take their resume, make a narrative about all the things they did. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of space. They already have this information about you. But so what are those unique things? What's something different about you that makes you highly competitive to be admitted? And then what you think about is, how did I get to that spot? What was the journey?
It's all
Um,
about the journey. You're
it's all
exactly right.
about the journey, and that's one of the things that the Common App asks are challenges, but also the journey you've been on. And here's the thing: all of our students have been on a journey. If I ask a high school one of my students, how many of you are the same person you were in ninth grade? No one will raise their hand. They've all changed. They've been on a journey. And what they get to determine then is what lessons have they learned and how they matured and how they changed that they think puts their best foot forward in being admitted to college. So it is a process. It's not something that you just sit down and write in an hour. If anyone can complete this, right? Like you said, John, anyone can complete the personal statement. But are you writing a competitive personal statement? Competitive for admissions, and these personal statements at many schools are also used for scholarships. Are you writing a competitive personal statement? So I like what you said earlier too, that the reality is not only are you writing this for admissions officers, but the context to that is critical. You're writing this for admissions officers that are literally reading hundreds and sometimes thousands of personal statements. Some
Sure.
schools will just kind of do that as it comes, rolls in. And we know of some schools that actually close their offices down for 2 or 3 days, or maybe even a week, to just read applications. And as a person who used to do that, it is laborsome. It is
Oh, I'm
laborsome.
sure.
And it's just like they just start all sounding the same. And the key is really, how do you stand out when you're writing that? And most important, writing that, and most importantly, how do you get the admissions officer to continue to read it?
Mhm.
To continue to read it. So what advice do you give your kiddos?
Imagery. Paint a picture for these admissions counselors. I always try to suggest to these students, and we've touched on this before. You have 3 to 5 lines to grab their attention. And starting with the quotes, overdone. Starting with the songs, overdone. You want to tell a story. That is my favorite part of
Yeah,
starting personal statement. Because as a reader, if I'm reading something that is not clear cut, but it's walking me down a path, I want to know how it ends.
exactly.
So being descriptive, painting a picture, you want these people, you want to tell a story. This isn't, you know, the tone and the style of this essay, it's unique. And
Mhm.
you mentioned it
Yeah,
before, write to your reader. I know there's a lot of high schools out there that build the personal statement into their curriculum, which is great. But, the one, I don't want to say issue with it, but the one thing that we've seen is, certain teachers, they're looking for something very specific. And it might not be the same thing that an admissions counselor is looking for. So you want to be
exactly.
careful with your style and tone and, the personality and the playfulness of it. So, you know, have fun with it.
Yeah. I think, what I tell my students is the oldest way we as humans communicate is through story. I mean, it's the oldest way we communicate. I mean, our little caveman and cavewoman ancestors sat around the fire at night and talked about the story of killing the woolly mammoth that day. They told stories, and every culture in humanity has always been defined also by the stories it tells. And there's a natural thing that subconsciously happens when you're using a story structure that, to your point, gets people to, they might be a little bit unclear about what you're saying, but they understand the process, the structure, the flow of what you're doing, and it keeps them reading. I don't know where this is going, but I know it's going to come out at the end, and they subconsciously know that, and it helps them keep reading. I mean, every story, every great story starts pretty much the same way. Once upon a time,
Yeah.
right? And then something happened, and they had to rise to the moment, and it changed them, and they learned from it, and they're different at the end, and we all live happily ever after. It's the most classic storyline ever. And if we can get our students to write in a story, people love reading stories. I
Exactly.
I don't like to read essays, but
Yeah,
I'll
give me
read
a
a
story.
story. Yeah. Essays are boring. Write a story. Write a story.
That's
Another
such a
thing,
good quote. You need to put that quote on your wall.
what's that? Essays are boring. Write a story.
Essays are boring, stories are better.
Stories are better. Stories are better.
I like that.
Um, you know, I was talking to a student just recently, and they were really struggling around, how do I come up with this topic? How do I get to this place to where I don't feel like I have any challenges? I don't have any of those different types of things. I'm really a boring student. What do you tell that student that just feels like they're boring, right? I kind of lean in on, hey, you've changed, right? What's the journey? How do you think you've changed in a significant way? But what other ideas do you have on that student? There's so many of them say, oh, my life's pretty boring. I really haven't done anything. Life's been pretty good. There's nothing interesting about me. How do you get that creative flow from that student?
Those are the conversations for me that are fun. So I come from a counseling background, and it turns into a therapy session, honestly. And I try to beat them at their own game. So
Yeah.
if they claim that they're boring, okay. So I kind of play into the boringness of it, and I want them to, and I phrase questions in a way where I'm borderline insulting because I want them to come back to me and share why they're not boring.
Yeah. Everyone.
So I'm digging. I'm looking for, places you've gone, favorite movies, favorite, you know, memorabilia, things that are in your room that if your house was burning down, what do you have to grab? Like just looking for anything
Mhm.
as a trigger, because I think these kids think that, you know what, this one thing or this one experience or this one item can be the full story. And, anybody who enjoys reading knows there has to be multiple elements to your story that's tied and kind of, intertwined. And those are when they become good stories.
Yeah. That's good. There are parents and there's high school students out there that maybe are underclassmen. They're not going to be a senior this year, and they're saying, okay, that's a long way away. And I think, interested in your thoughts around this. I believe that students can really start planning for their essay early. I think that, so one of the things I encourage students to do is, if they're traveling, take a travel journal. No one
Mhm.
wants to hear about your summer vacation that you went to Europe, right? But they might want to hear the story of the first time you walked in the Vatican and how it had changed you and how it inspired you and it showed you a new world of the arts. But if you did that between your sophomore and junior year, or between your freshman and sophomore year, you may not remember all that. But if you've kept a journal on those kind of experiences, that can really be valuable, not only in your personal statement, but those could come up in supplemental essays that some colleges are going to ask you about an international experience or maybe something that shaped why you want to study a certain topic. So there are things like journaling in not assuming an event is meaningless, right? Not walking through life that everything is normal. Capturing those different types of things can really help you when you get to that place where seniors right now are trying to create an essay. What are some other ideas you have for
That's
underclassmen to help them prepare for this?
that's such a good idea. I think one way to prepare for it, the fortunate thing is, I mean, the prompts have not changed in 5, 7, 10 years. I mean, the prompts are the prompts. Whether you're a senior now, whether you're in 8th grade, you know what they're gonna ask for.
Mhm.
And so those are clear cut. The journaling thing is a great idea. What I think is also helpful, because the personal statement, we have so much free reign. We can write about whatever we want. I think the preparation is probably more important for the supplementals.
Yeah.
Now, those do change, they
Yeah.
vary year to year, but those where they really dig in and they're asking you for something very direct. And I think that's when, if you have a school in mind and you're a sophomore and you might want to apply to North Carolina State, they're going to ask you, what do you want to study and why do you want to study at an NC
Mhm.
State?
Mhm.
Or what is your biggest challenge? That is one where you actually need to sit down and think, okay, what
Yeah.
is my most meaningful challenge that I overcame?
I love that. I think that's so, like, if I know if a student, so my daughter is going to be a sophomore, she is interested, one of her schools is Baylor. Well, I know and she knows what those supplemental essays have traditionally been at Baylor. Right? She can start thinking about those things right now because one of the things that now we're talking about supplemental essays, so we're getting a little off track, but they're looking for educated intent. Why do
Mhm.
you want to attend Baylor? Why do you want to attend Duke? Why? And it has to be not this generic thing, but specifically showing that you're educated and you're informed on why that institution is best for you. So
Yeah.
if you identify that early on, you're able to start educating yourself about that school to make you so much more prepared. When you go to a campus, you know that you need to be looking for things to answer that question. You need to be looking when you go visit campus, maybe there's some special experiences you want to have while you're on campus so you can better answer that question. These typically are not pop quizzes. Pretty straightforward what they're asking. If you know at a school, if you know that a school is a top school for you early on, you can start preparing for it early on. Love that.
You know what's usually a red flag too? I always find it comical. So, we have, these kids come in, they want to apply to Chapel Hill because the blue is pretty, or they want to, apply to South Carolina because their dorms are awesome. And when they're asked to write the supplemental that says, "Why do you want to study this here?" They go, "Well, I don't know. Why would I have to know that?" They're weeding you out.
Yeah, that's right.
They're weeding out those kind of kids. Honestly, I mean that's
How
and
serious are you?
I mean,
Yeah, I think it's a key question. You'll see that more and more at some of the most competitive schools. And it's a very specific answer they're looking for, and the answer that's informed. All right, couple of last questions. Right, let's talk about some of the use of technology. We have spell check, we have Grammarly, and of course we have AI. What are your feelings around the use of technology in the writing of these personal statements and supplemental essays?
I'm for it in a certain capacity. So
Mhm.
many of these students, they're going to utilize Google Docs because honestly, most of them, they're writing their essay on their phone.
Yeah, yeah,
So they're utilizing Google Docs, which is fine,
yeah.
but take advantage of the resources that's going to give you a clean essay. So if you use Google Docs, spell check and Grammarly, those things may be on there, they may not. So if I can recommend anything, whatever you write in Google Doc, download it into a Word doc where it's going to give you a better version of it because it's going to underline everything that is misspelled because I don't believe Google Docs does that. And, you know, Word is going to be able to tell you, okay, we need a comma here, we need a semicolon here. So take advantage of the resources that's going to give you a good, clean essay.
Yeah.
And we've mentioned AI stuff on previous episodes. And yes, will they be able to detect if you used AI to write it? 100%. But, do I think it's a terrible idea to possibly use AI as an idea for you to draft your own essay?
I
Take
I
it.
agree. I think it could really help you with idea generation,
Mhm. Yes.
but I would 100% not pen and paste, right? Because, you can use technology to determine, if something was AI generated, but there's nothing wrong with using AI to help you generate ideas, right? But here's the other thing, I AI is a cognitive function. It is not a feeling and emotional function.
Mhm.
It has no feelings. It has no emotion. And like where you're talking earlier about painting the picture, that's just not what AI is great at. And at the end of the day, you need feeling and emotion to really connect with your reader. And
Yeah.
so 100% use spell check, right? That's almost laziness, not using spell check. I'm a big fan of Grammarly because it can make suggestions, but Grammarly is not always right and it doesn't pretend to be right. It's just making suggestions. AI, good resource if you want to be creative and help think through some different things, but do not, I would say do not use that to write your essay or cut and paste things from that because at the end of the day, a trained reader, me and you are both people who've read thousands of essays. I can tell pretty quickly. I can because there's no heart in it and it's very dry. And at the end of the day, it's not going to be your best essay, in my opinion.
No, it's
So,
blatant. I mean, can AI write a heck of an essay about Abraham Lincoln? Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. But not
yeah.
not gonna write an essay about you.
No, that's right. So in that vein of best essays, can you tell me a little bit about one of the favorite essays you've ever had from one of your students?
I wrote down 5.
Ah,
I wrote down 5 preparing for this. I'm not gonna go into all 5, but I think the one that I like the most, she goes into valuing experiences over things.
Mm,
and senior just graduated, going to West Virginia University, going to study nursing. And, where we live in our community, it's pretty affluent. She goes to a high school that is pretty diverse, but she is in a large friend group that is, all very cookie cutter, a lot of money, a lot of things, a lot of things to brag about. And they do well financially, but they live in a modest home, they drive modest vehicles, and what's important to them is going on trips and experiencing time together and seeing different things. So to me, that tells a really, really good story of who she is and what she
yeah,
values, because she doesn't
yeah,
care about, the car in the driveway, or, she has a pool in her backyard. It's, I'd rather go to Austria with my mom and dad because I'm 17, 2 years from now when I'm in college, life will never be the same. And these experiences I'll never get back.
yeah. So good. What
So
a
to me,
great
that's one
story
of
of
that's one of my
transformation.
that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean, it's being what they're, we're talking, we're seeing a part of the student that an admissions officer wouldn't see anywhere else. We're speaking to values, we're speaking to character. What a great story. And I know for me, one of our students, she wrote an essay about being a sneakerhead, right? And just loving sneakers. I mean, just loving it. And she talks about this one time. She was walking into a coffee shop and she noticed a gentleman that was probably suffering from experiencing homelessness at the moment, and noticed that they had shoes on, but they weren't matching shoes. And it totally shattered this young teenager's paradigms of, that didn't everyone have sneakers, right? And it really messed with her. And at the age of like 15 or 16, as a sophomore in high school, she started this kind of a sneaker drive to where she partnered with a nonprofit agency and collected, it was buy a pair, give a pair. Challenging friends and challenging families in the community. When you're buying a pair of sneakers for yourself, let's buy another one for somebody else. She was able to collect hundreds of pairs of sneakers. And but then she goes on to not only that service she did and how it changed her mindset and how it opened her eyes, but that she wants to go to business and into entrepreneurship that is really social entrepreneurship. She wants to do things that not only, create great business, but they also shape and change communities. So she was able to also tell that to her career aspirations as well. But she was vulnerable. She talked about her privilege. She talked about how, she realized in that moment, there's just a snap moment that many people just step right around. In that moment, she saw, wow, not everyone has the opportunities that I have, and how can I fight for that for other people, not just today, but make a career path of that. So it was a really powerful
That
essay.
is so cool.
So I think the key thing is, guys, is we want you to know is that don't take this as just a simple checkbox, right? Don't take this as something that you can just glaze over. I would say also, don't think that this is just a writing and punctuation and grammar test. I mean, using good writing and punctuation and grammar are important, but that's really not what the personal statement is about. The personal statement is giving the reader, the admissions officer, a picture of you that they would not get anywhere else. And you're making an argument. You're getting to make your argument on why you'd be competitive and why you should be selected for their school for admission and for scholarships. So don't just check the box, lean into it a little bit, get uncomfortable, and put your best foot forward and write a great college essay. Till next time,
Rennie, always a pleasure.
put your best foot forward.